Hi, my name is Lindsie. I'm one of the founders of ACP. I just wanted to take a moment to thank you for watching my show, Just Ponder It. Enjoy! Hello, my name is Lindsie Darvin. Welcome to my show called Just Ponder It, and today we've got the Brandon Tatum. Welcome on.
Thanks for having me, Lindsie.
If you would tell us a little bit about yourself and your show for all of our listeners out there, I'd super appreciate it.
All right, so just a little bit about me. I was born and raised in Fort Worth, Texas. I played college football at the University of Arizona. I was in the NFL draft. I didn't get drafted like I dreamed. I ended up becoming a police officer in Tucson, Arizona. I got into politics around 2015-16. Ended up making YouTube videos while I was a police officer, just expressing my opinions on political matters and social issues. And then eventually I got an opportunity to work with a conservative organization. I left policing, and it was only supposed to be for about a year to give it a try. But then I end up meeting some incredible people. Candace Owens is one of the people that I've met and become really close with. We started a nonprofit together, and I just continue to grow. I worked for Turning Point USA as the urban engagement director, started Blexit nonprofit with Candace Owens, and then I just continue to grow, started building a lot of my social media platform and my e-commerce store and other businesses that I run. I started building those on my own. With the spirit of entrepreneurship. I guess one thing that I left out was that I'm a Christian. I was saved in 2008, went to an apostolic church, and, God has really been blessing me ever since.
Well, that's so great to hear. Now, I know you mentioned that you're part of something called Blexit. Can you tell us a little bit about what y'all do there?
Well, Blexit is a nonprofit 501c3 organization. We tried to make a play on the name Blexit and BREXIT, meaning pretty much the British exit. And so for us, it's the black exit, and the black exit from the group thing, black exit from believing that you have to only think one way, that politically you have to only be a Democrat. And so Candace Owens and I started the nonprofit to give people access to truth and to feel confident in believing that you don't have to believe the status quo. You can go outside the box, be the best version of yourself, prioritize the things that benefit your community. And we've been able to have chapters in all 50 states. And it's just been an incredible blessing. We started it in 2018, 2020, it actually blew up pretty significantly. And so we do events all over the country. We do outreach in the communities all over the country, back to school drives, food drives. I mean, all of the above. We try to engage in the inner city communities all over America.
Have you seen a lot of people's minds change that now they know and they can see that there's other political beliefs that they can follow instead of what society is trying to tell us we need to believe?
100%. I think that so many people have woken up. And when I say they have woken up, it's not necessarily that they agree with me, but they've woken up to realize that, hey, there's another side to this. Maybe I need to do more research. Maybe I shouldn't listen to everything I hear on the media or from the media on the news, and that I have a choice to make. And the choice is, do I want to be informed to, my best capability, or do I want to be left in the dark? So we encourage people to go out and read and research, verify everything that you listen to. And we've seen an incredible movement, not as much as I would like. I would like to see 90% of the people that I communicate with to be able to wake up and see it, but that's not realistic. But we've seen a tremendous amount of people of all walks of life come to reality that, the media is not telling you the truth, and there's more to the story. All you have to do is do research.
Yes. And I know for me, like being a young conservative, I'm definitely in the minority at my college as far as my political beliefs. But for me, it's always been, this is the party that most aligns with not only my religious beliefs, but what I believe the role of the government should be in private citizens' lives. Do you think that there is a spot for young people to be conservative and not just be what they tell us that, oh, that's the group of people who are homophobic or racist or bigots or whatever you want to call us? Do you think that maybe there we've been painted wrong that there actually is a spot for young people.
1,000%. I mean, I think to say that conservative ideas are bigoted, they're racist, is just the biggest lie I've ever heard in my life. I mean, just look at policies. You know, if somebody says that, oh, conservatives are racist, give me a policy that's racist. Give me a policy that's homophobic. Give me a policy that's transphobic. You know, people just say that because they don't have a good argument. So instead of arguing the point with you, they want to label you a title that you can't come back from. And I think that it's been unfair how people have categorized the conservative movement and tried to make it seem like it's not rational for young people to be a part of conservatism. Conservatives believe in God. I mean, this country was founded on God. You know, I mean, all of our founding fathers, look at the founding documents, look at our money. In God we trust. I mean, we used to say prayers in the school. I mean, look at our national anthem. Look at the Pledge of Allegiance. I mean, you look at every aspect of our lives, and the reason that our country is so free and beautiful the way that it is, and we've continued to progress, is because we put God first in this country. And so having a conservative ideology that God is important is not detrimental to anybody. And you can go down the list. Marriage. Can somebody say the constitution of marriage between a man and a woman, is that a bad thing? No, it is not. You know, you go down a list of all the fiscal responsibility, lower taxes. Is that a bad thing? No, it is not. It's just that I look at it like this. You know, I feel like the left or the Democrat Party is the party that they rather give you a fish than teach you how to fish. They rather give you a handout and you be dependent on them, versus the conservative idea or the Republican Party is saying, no, make your own way, and then you can sustain you and your family forever, and you don't need the government.
Yeah, and I really think like America is in its own special, unique category of a country that was actually founded on this great foundation, that we are so fortunate to actually have a constitution that we can reference for, you know, what should people's lives be. And yet, you know, I feel like every time I turn on the news, I'm hearing people talk about, oh, that was written, you know, 300 years ago. We shouldn't still be following that. It's like, no, the people who made that absolutely knew what they were talking about. And as conservatives, it should be our job to conserve those ideals.
1,000%. I mean, you can't build a beautiful mansion and then say, let's tear apart the foundation. The mansion will not stand. The mansion was built on a particular foundation, and this country was built on a foundation. And the foundation, I keep going back to God, because we have inalienable rights that are given to us by God. That's why we have freedoms that we have, because no man can take those freedoms. No government institution can negate those freedoms. And that's a beautiful state to be in. And I believe it with my whole heart that we should conserve the principles that have gotten us to this point. It's the same thing with the integrity, with the integrity of science. It's not like they say, well, the science was 100 years ago, 400 years ago. If the science is proven, then we should still apply the science. Mathematics have been around for, you know, hundreds of centuries, I guess you could say. I mean, thousands of years. Mathematics have been around. Do we throw the baby out with the bathwater because it was so old long ago? No, it still works. 2 + 2 is still 4. And the same applies to the foundation of our country.
That's absolutely correct. And I also, you know, I've always viewed America, you know, as they call it, the melting pot. And it's absolutely true. You know, we have so many people come from so many cultures and religious backgrounds, yet we've always had that sense of like, we're Americans first, and that's our national identity. But, you know, in the, you know, past couple decades, there's been such a political stratification that you get people who are losing sight of, you know, what makes us Americans and what makes us unique. Do you think there's a way we could ever overcome that and, you know, unite again?
Well, there's two ways. I think that we have to do it through blunt force. And when I say blunt force, I'm not talking literally, I'm talking figuratively. We have to always promote that we love our country, the values of our country, and show the stark contrast between us and other people. And then the other component, which I don't hope will happen, but it seems that history repeats itself, is that there has to be a catastrophic event. And then people will start realizing how much they love America and how safe they are here, just like 9/11. You know, when we get attacked, then people start really realizing that, oh, wait a minute, it's them against us. We need to come together as a country and be strong because our lives are at stake. And I honestly believe if people will sit back and perceptualize this, just like they do with their family, right? You know, you got the kids in the house and they're ungrateful. Oh, you know, mom don't do this or dad don't do this. Well, you're only saying that because you live a privileged life. Now, would you rather have another family? Or if you lost it all, how would you feel? You would enjoy and appreciate your family more if you were faced with adversity. Same thing with America. People, you know, the poorest people in America are some of the richest people in the world. Our poor people in America have free benefits, free insurance. They get paid money. If you're unemployed, you get an unemployment check. If you were working, if you were on government assistance, they got access in Arizona as the medical thing. I mean, you go down a list. Even when Obama was in office, people who are homeless and poor got cell phones. I mean, that is unbelievable when you look at that compared to the rest of the world. So, you know, I think is very clear that you and I and others have to continue to push the message of American exceptionalism.
Yes. And I know I hear it a lot around just the people my age and even older people that were constantly, you know, I hear this phrase all the time that, "Ooh, we're oppressed. We have to fight the oppression." And then I'm like, you've got food and you're able to go to school and you're a woman that can go to school. And then you get all these countries like in the Middle East right now where they'll kill you if you try to go to school. And it's like, oh, you're so fortunate, you know, like this is not what oppression is. That's not right. And oh, I can't believe that sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, people, you know, it's human nature to want to default to victimization, right? I mean, instead of working hard and understanding that life comes with adversities, people want to make excuses and say, oh, it's because I'm a woman. Oh, it's because I'm a man. I mean, let's go back in history. Madam C.J. Walker. People don't know Sarah Bree Love. Madam C.J. Walker was the first female millionaire out of any woman of any race, and she was a black woman. And she was a millionaire at the time. If you adjust for inflation, she was a billionaire. She would have been a billionaire back then. And she was a billionaire in she was a millionaire considered in the early 1900s, late 1800s. I mean, you know, women may not have had the opportunity to do the things that they've been able to do today, but I don't think that was a negative thing. I think that over time we progressed and gave people opportunities. And I don't think that today women can go back and reflect and say, oh, I'm oppressed because of what happened 100 years ago. I mean, it wasn't that long ago, but what happened a while ago to women. I don't think that people can live their life looking in the rearview mirror. If you look at today in America, 2023, there's no obstacles that are preventing you from being the best version of yourself and doing what God has called you to do. Because there's a very big difference between doing what God has called you to do and doing what you want to do. Because some people may want to be the president, but you're not equipped to be the president. And it's not because you're a woman. It's because God didn't call you to do that. And therefore, the stars may not align for you to accomplish that. Some people may want to be billionaires or millionaires. Well, that's not God's calling on your life. So when you don't make it, you should assume that, man, God don't want that for me. And there's something better for me. And I don't have to look at it as if I'm getting, discriminated against. I should look at it as God has another plan for me. And I wish that people would see that more often.
Yeah. And I know also, you know, especially in the Bible, it says, you know, if you're not a Christian or you are a Christian, either way, it's not going to be easy. You're going to face hard times. You're going to face obstacles, and you just have to be able to get over that. And I feel like so many people have the mindset now that if they're not getting special treatment, they're being treated badly, that something's being done wrong to them. When instead it's like, hey, we're finally at the point in America, you know, for the 1900s, we got to where we needed to be, where it's pretty well an even playing field. We all have the right to vote. We all can, if we want to try to go be CEO, we can. We can do what, you know, we want to strive to do, as long as that's, you know, what God is also calling us to do. And I believe we're certainly in a unique circumstance where we've got, you know, more liberties and more privileges than most any other country has currently. And I believe that's such a blessing for Americans right now.
1,000%. I mean, you look at successful people. You know, there's people who are black that are very successful that came from nothing. There are people who are white. There are people who are Hispanic. There are people who are Asian, people who have migrated here that came from nothing. And all you have to do is look at the recipe, right? There's a recipe for success. And if you graduate school, you don't have children outside of marriage, you know, you get a good education, you stay out of the criminal justice system, you do all of those things, the chances of you being in poverty is almost zero. So the people who are complaining about not having opportunities, you say, well, let's go back and look at your decision making. So you didn't apply yourself when you were in school. So you're not educated enough to do well in the interview. You don't have the knowledge and experience to do certain things that you claim that you want to do. It's not discrimination, it's you're not qualified. And I'll tell you this, there's nothing worth having that it doesn't come with some adversity. It is God's way of building you and preparing you for something great. And if you are in the building stage and you quit, then of course you're not going to achieve anything. Of course you're going to feel like, you know, you're downtrodden and that the world is against you. You have to overcome that adversity because it builds character. It builds perseverance. It builds patience. It builds faith. I mean, to be successful, you need excellence in those areas. And if you don't have those things, I mean, you're not going to do well, even if you were the CEO or even if you did get the manager's position on that job. If you have not been through the fire, it's going to be very difficult for you to do well.
I agree. And I know like some of the, you know, strongest people in my life, they came from nothing. Like I think about my dad who, you know, his family didn't have money to send him to college, you know, because he was one of 3 kids. So he worked all throughout college and he paid for it as he went and he graduated debt free. And that's kind of the way people used to do it. And, you know, when I went into college myself, you know, I had that little bit of expectation. Oh, well, my parents will be helping me. I'll be okay. And then, you know, when I realized and they told me, no, you're on your own, it really made me realize, oh, well, I need to figure this out then because my parents had to figure this out, you know, 20, 30 years ago. So then you start, you know, thinking, how can I make this work if this is really what I want to do? And if this is worth it, then you'll figure it out.
1,000%. You know, I think that, you know, but the true reality of what you're talking about and kind of what we're expressing here is that people need to hear that message. It's not good for people to hear you'll never be a certain thing in this country because of the color of your skin or because you're a woman or because you're some minority group. You'll never be. The country isn't made for you. It's not your country. It's a white man's country, white privilege, you know, white, you know, they say white privilege and they say white supremacy. And they flood young people's minds with all of these lies that put you at a mental disadvantage. And I realized that because I used to be a person who thought, well, I'm never do that because I'm black and I'm in a white man's world. Like a white man will never see me as equal as another white man. I'm always going to be a black man less than to white people. And then when I went to college and I started getting exposed to a new reality, I say, well, wow, I have been limiting myself before ever giving myself an opportunity. You know, I went to a Rider University in New Jersey and a young lady came up to ask a question during my speech. And I told her, I said, you can be whatever you want to be in this country if you apply yourself. And 400 people booed me as if I was telling her something that was wrong or evil. And then she said, well, I'm black. I'm not going to get a good opportunity and fair opportunity at a job. And I said, wait, have you gave it an attempt yet? Well, no. Well, I said, don't talk yourself out of something if you haven't tried it. How about you go to the job and apply yourself? And if they do discriminate against you, now you have that on your resume to say, hey, I experienced that. But you can't say they're going to discriminate against you and you never tried it. That you're defeating yourself before you have an opportunity or access to success.
Yeah, and that's absolutely true. I mean, you got to give it a shot before you write it off, for sure. And, you know, that's not to say that America's perfect by any means. And I was actually, you know, going to ask you, with all the issues America's seeing, do you believe that there's one issue that might be the most important issues facing Americans right now?
You said an issue related to the well-being of America or issue related to the well-being of individual relations between people? I'm sorry, I maybe that's the same thing, but I'm saying, are you saying like America, like the economy, militarily, or are you saying facing the people that live in America? Meaning
facing the people.
Right. Yeah. I think the biggest thing is division. We need unity in America, unifying people. because the way that the enemy works, and the enemy can take different forms. The enemy could be the church. Some churches are acting on, on behalf of the enemy, in my opinion. Is the enemy divides us. They pick apart our differences and exploit them. The beauty of America is that we're different. We're different sizes. We're different heights. We're different shapes. We have different backgrounds. Our skin melanin is different. We come from different cultures. Maybe some people come from the South, come from New York, come from the West Coast. Some people maybe, they are from China, or they have a heritage from China. So they have Chinese food, different food, soul food from the South. I mean, we all have a bunch of differences, and that's what makes us great. The problem in our country is that people exploit those differences and say that we're divided, that having differences in a variety of different perspectives is a negative thing. They want to say, well, you're white and I'm black, so somehow we shouldn't be associated with one another. Somehow we don't have anything in common. And I don't think that that's true. And I wish that in America, our leaders, the people that we call upon to lead and represent us, would have the mindset of unity and not the mindset of partisan politics. I think that's one thing that I want to see presidential candidates coming out, even Donald Trump coming out in this election, is that how do you bring us together? The people that want to be together, like there's people that never want to be a part of society, that we're not talking about those people, but the people that are longing for us to come together and find a way to unify, even though we have differences. I want to see Donald Trump and other people who are running for office put apart our differences and try to exploit our similarities and say, look, we may not agree on everything. We're trying to go to the same destination, but we may take different streets. Some people want to take the highway. Some people want to take the back roads. We're still trying to get to point A. What is point A for you and I? Point A is better schools. Point A is, better education, better job opportunities, lower taxes, less government involvement, safe environment, safe communities, upward mobility, the freedom of expression of faith. That's our point A. How do we get to that point? And let's all come together and figure out a strategy that we can all get to that point and be okay with us going different directions to get there.
Yeah, I know some of the best presidents that, I can think of in American history. They weren't those presidents who just fought for their own political party. They were the presidents that actually, was decided, I'm not going to alienate half of America that didn't vote for me. I'm going to be the people's president. I'm actually going to try to help everyone, include everyone. And I think that's such an important characteristic in anyone who wants to be in office. It's like, yes, you want to, if you're, running as a Republican, you want to try to uphold those conservative values, but you also want to try to help the country as a whole. You're not just there for half of the world.
Right. And for me, I'm a Christian. I don't believe in same-sex marriage. However, I do think people should be protected. You shouldn't be assaulted because you think differently than other people. I may think differently than you, but I want your safety and best interest to be at heart as well, because as a Christian, I'm called to love you. So with loving you, I'm going to tell you the truth, but I also care about you. And I think that we should be able to do that in this country. In no way, form, or fashion do I believe Drag Queen Story Hour should be something that is applied to kids. But at the same time, I don't think drag queens should be beat up and dragged in the street either. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that people should treat people with kindness and generosity. And you can do that while also fighting for the truth. At my children's school, I'm going to vote against that. I'm going to come against that. I don't have to hate you, but I don't think it's appropriate for children. And I don't think we have to be so vitriolic in order to accomplish those things. And I'm not saying be a coward and just bow down to every winded doctrine, but I do think that there's a way to say, hey, if I was the president, hey, the LGBTQ representatives, I would love for you to come to the White House. Explain to me what you need in society and explain to me what your issues are. Now you come to me and you say, we're being, discriminated against. Well, you're going to have to come to me with some factual data. And if you come to me with factual data that alludes to the fact that you're being discriminated against for whatever reason, policy wise, then let's address the policies. There shouldn't be punitive policies against individuals because we live in a country that you're supposed to be free. Now, when your individuality begin to thwart the freedom of another person, then that's when we have a problem, right? I mean, you can not own a gun if you don't want to. You can get as many shots as you want to. But when your policies begin to inflict on another person's freedoms, then we have to say, okay, this is where the line is drawn. But I would never say as a president to say, I'm not talking to LGBTQ leaders. I'm not talking to Black Lives Matter. I'm not talking. You can come talk to me. I want to hear from you. Maybe you can convince me, and maybe it's something that I'm not aware of, that we can meet in the middle on. You know, we don't, I mean, I'm not going to go all the way. I'm not going to, have the pride colors on the White House, but maybe there's some policies that you want to advocate for that makes sense for all of us. And I think that'll be, as a president, I think that's what presidents should strive to do.
Yes. And everything you do, got to do it in love and not from a place of hatred. And I really think that speaks to people. But I also think a lot of things happen that no one also really addresses either. And I think of the phrase, like, we learned this when we were learning about the Holocaust in high school. They were teaching us that bad things happen when good people do nothing. So I've always taken that, thought with me. And, while, like you said, it should never come to violence or killing people or, screaming and cussing and disrespectfulness, at the same time, you shouldn't just, that's not my problem, because it is your problem. You live here too. And if you see some, sort of injustice or flaw in the system, you should try to fix that. And even if that's just getting out to the polls on voting day and voting for the person you think that's, going to do the job and fix it, that's what we should be doing.
No, I agree 1,000%. The funny thing is that people complain a lot, but not a lot of people vote. Almost half of our country now of eligible voters don't even vote. And so it's like, well, what are you actually complaining about if you're not going to be a part of the solution? And you see that all too often. And also, I think people in our country, we argue about nonsense, meaning that people are arguing about police brutality as if it's a real thing perpetuated exclusively against Black people. It's like, I think as a former police officer, police misconduct is one of the things that anger me the most. No one despises a man or woman who disrespect a badge like I do. Now, we can walk and chew gum at the same time. We can address police brutality when it is in fact brutality. You can't just think we're going to come to a conclusion because everything you don't like to see, you consider police brutality. That's not the way things work. I think that we have to unite in truth. We can't unite in falsehoods, in passive aggressive behavior or tacit approval. We have to unite through telling the truth. That means I look at you and I say, okay, let's talk about statistical data. Statistically, this is a fact. So do you want to work from a fact or do you want to work from emotions? Because emotions tell you, I see a Black man getting shot with no context on a body-worn camera that's only 30 seconds, I'm outraged. Reality is, let's talk about the context of what happened. And once we got the facts out there, maybe there's a policy that we could change that will make this a different scenario in the future. But we can't argue on emotionalism. We have to argue on factual basis because that's the only way we're going to fix anything.
Yes, that's true. And that brings me to my last question I have for you. I know I've got some, people in my family who are former law enforcement. So just hearing everything going around at like, let's defund the police and we don't need the police force. It's always been absurd to me just because I've had that point of view of I was raised to respect authority and police officers and everyone in that kind of position. But how do we repair this mistrust that so much of the public has with police officers right now, when the fact is the vast majority of police officers are just here to protect you?
Right. I mean, 1,000%. I wore the badge. I know what it's like to put my life on the line for other people all night while they sleep, and so while the good people sleep, the rest of them are trying to kill you and you sleep. So, we have to come out and do our job. But I think that we need to stop with the hyperbolic rhetoric. Like, let's be honest. we should tout from the mountaintop, every politician, that police officers are great people. What an honorable position, a job for you to put your life on the line. There's no greater sacrifice than put your life on the line for somebody. And then we can also address, we all want to eliminate bad policing. We all want to get rid of bad police officers on the police department. But we do understand that in order for you to see a better police force, you can't demonize them, the ones who are doing what's right. And then also you can't defund them, because as a former police officer, good policing comes with good training and support. You should be able to have force-on-force training, simunition training, scenario-based training. You should pay your police officers and require more from them. You have to pay them more to require more. You can't say, well, we want the best police officers that are in the society and we pay them dirt. Those people can't make it. They're going to go find other things to do. But if you pay them well, and then when they go through the academy, you train them with the most advanced technology and training, you're going to get a better quality police officer who's out on the street. And we should love and respect our police officers, just like we do our military. We should respect them, give them hope, encouragement, push and elevate those who are doing what's right. And let us all come together to oust the ones who are wearing the badge and doing crimes and doing things that they ought not do. That's how we fix it. We have to fix it by telling the truth. And we can't fix it by saying police departments are rooted in white supremacy. That is the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. Police came from slave patrols. That is not true. That's like saying humans came from monkeys. There is no legitimate connection. There are similarities between slave patrols and the modern police, because they had to patrol the areas that the slaves were in, but they weren't functional government-run police departments. They were kind of like private-owned security. And that's nowhere near what police officers are today. There's no centralized training. None of that stuff existed in slave patrols. And to be honest, slave patrols weren't just perpetuated by police. It was people in the citizenry who decided to pick certain people to patrol their area. And then also, if you didn't have slaves, there was no such thing as slave patrol where there was no slaves. So half of the country, and also people who never owned slaves, which was the majority of the people in the South, it didn't have slave patrols. And then also I'll add this, when you look at the innovation of policing in America, you have to look at the fact that they're functional through laws that are voted on by the people. So it's not like that you have some rogue patrol where they come out and they say, we're just going to do whatever we want to do today. No, it's like the people voted for these laws to be in place, local and federal. And therefore, the patrol officers are just patrolling and enforcing the laws you voted for. And so there's a stark difference between slave patrols and policing. And I wrote that in my book, Beating Black and Blue. But there's also, we just have to realize these things within context, and therefore we can better address these issues.
Yeah. I mean, I think we could all benefit from having some more appreciation for everyone who puts their life, on the line for us. And I certainly think police officers are one of the top positions to respect. Well, I want to thank you so much for coming onto my show and talking to me. And I really appreciate you taking out your time out of your day to talk to me.
Well, Lindsie, I just want to say this, and I hope that you have this on the record. I love your boldness. And I said this to you off camera. I don't normally do interviews like this, but because you were bold enough and had the courage to ask me, I said, you know what? And I've turned people down. I mean, 99.9% of the time I've turned people down to do interviews similar to this. But I said, you know what? It was just on my heart. I said, I love her confidence. I love the fact that she said, you know what? I'm going to ask Brandon and I'll see where it go. And you weren't like, I'm not going to ask him because he has 2 million subscribers and he's, busy and whatever. You asked me. And because of that, because you stepping out on faith, I said, I'll take time out of my day and I'll do an interview with her. And I hope you the very best. And I will recommend people come on and do interviews with you as well.
Thank you. Thank you. That means so much to me. I really, really appreciate it. Whew, thank you so much for being on the show. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. God bless you, Lindsie.
Thank you. You have a great rest of your day.
All righty.